William Schaw Lindsay was a member of Parliament for Sunderland long ago. But I've just looked at the photograph to see if he looked like him, because Bill's the great-great-grandson of William Lindsay. I think we're going to have a fascinating evening. Ladies and gentlemen, Bill Lindsay.
First of all, thank you very much for turning up. It's a lovely day outside, and you've chosen to come here. I'm very, very honoured, and I'm very grateful for Phil and the gang for allowing me to come and give a talk. There's quite a lot of surprises in this. A lot of this data is new, and I'll explain that in a minute. But yes, he was, this is my great-great-grandfather who was MP for Sunderland, and Sunderland comes in the talk quite a bit. Just to give you an idea, in 1852, he owned 22 ocean-going ships, and he was chartering 700 a year. He was like the Richard Branson in merchant shipping in his day. But in his diary, anyone who's who in Victorian days, there are anecdotes. So Brunel, Queen Victoria, Livingstone, 4 prime ministers of the day, Lincoln, Napoleon III, the Emperor of France, Nightingale, all these people, there are personal anecdotes in the diaries which have never been published before. And it was just amazing, and you're going to hear some of these stories tonight. Because there was so much information there, I decided, right, I'm going to split the book into 7 segments. His time at sea in the 1830s, his success, and then politics, Crimean War, something about shipping and emigration, and American Civil War, and then his time as an author. So he was born in Ayr, in sight of the sea, at his uncle's house. And his uncle, as you can see here, this is the Reverend William Schaw, and that's where he got his name, William Schaw Lindsay. He was orphaned by the age of 10. His mother died when he was 10, but his father had died when he was 4. He was a failed businessman. He died in Edinburgh, and I think a lot of that was down to drink as well. He ran away to sea, age 16, and within 9 years, he was captain of an ocean-going vessel. And he had several near-death experiences, and I'll touch on that. He was living at this time in Glasgow. His uncle gave him £5. On the way to the docks in Glasgow, those £5 were stolen by someone, an associate that he'd met on the way there, and he had 2 shillings and 6pence to start out life. And when he got on board, the captain found out that he couldn't pay for his voyage, so he had to go down and stoke the vessel. This is early days of steam, so small steamship going from Glasgow down to Liverpool. When he got to Liverpool, at the docks, he set out every day trying to find employment on a ship. And he went every day for 6 weeks trying to find a place on a ship, basically as an apprentice on board a ship. And finally, he actually secured a place. However, the 2 and 6 quickly ran out, and he had to resort to begging. He had no food, no accommodation, and obviously no employment. And he befriended quite a few people there who looked after him. As I say, he was about 16. But that was a life experience for him, not having any money. So he managed to get he was one of 4 apprentices on board this ocean-going ship. And this ocean-going ship went to West Indies. So this is the early phase. So he was on 4 ships during his time, working his way up from apprentice through to being a captain. But originally he started off going to Georgetown, Demerara. And Demerara, of course, is all to do with sugar. And what I found out, it's amazing what you find out when you do research and read things. But I wondered why they'd gone up to Canada. And the reason why they'd gone up to Canada was to get wood to make the barrels for the sugar. So this was a sort of triangular voyage to secure that. And to give you an idea, in those days, particularly in the Navy, but also the merchant Navy, if you were being sent to the West Indies, it was quite fearful because of yellow fever in those days. And in his diaries, he says 16 of 31 in the crew died within 4 weeks. And in those days, of course, you're sleeping in hammocks. And he explains that on his right-hand side, the person had died of yellow fever, and on the left-hand side, the person had died from yellow fever. But he was left alone. Later on, as a captain, he was asked by the East India Company to transport some specie or gold, precious metals, etc. And he shipped it out from India to Arabia, and then had to transport it across land. And he was set upon by an Arab leader who came at him with a saber, slashed him across the wrist, his chest rather, and he had that scar for the rest of his life. He said he drew his pistol and he shot him, but he didn't know if he killed him because they all had to scarper. He rather suspected he killed the leader. And this is a picture of his ship. This is the Olive Branch. He was captain of this. This was on a stamp. So after 9 years at sea, basically, I'd escaped quite a few things. I'm going to now do something different. He approached the owners of the ship, who also owned a colliery up here in the northeast, in Hartlepool. And I'll explain a bit more about that. He got married. He then set up a ship's brokerage in London, which provided coal. He provided coal for ocean-going liners, P&O and others. His son was born, and then I'll just explain a few things about auxiliary steamers. So the colliery was the Castle Eden colliery, just north of Hartlepool. And there was a miners' strike in 1844. And because he was a manager, basically in charge of shipping coal down to the south, to King's Lynn and Shoreham and London, they basically said, right, okay, go to the miners' cottages. If they're not going to go to work, turf them out. And he said that day was altogether the most unsatisfactory of my life. These learning events really impacted his life. Needless to say, he didn't do that more than a day. So things were going really well. He decided, I'm going to build a ship. And of course, he built the ship in his own name. It was a sailing ship. So here we are, 1852. Now, to give you an idea, 17 years later, the Cutty Sark was built, same size. We're not talking small ships here, we're talking big ships. He'd learned some lessons, building getting the lighthouse built, etc., and building up his company. He decided, right, I'm going to go into politics, and I'll explain that. Third time lucky, some of the challenges, and more about shipping affairs. He sat for Tynemouth and North Shields, and won that election as Liberal MP. And actually, from that, he moved during the same year to Sunderland MP. So here he was as MP for Tynemouth, but he hacked off, oops, don't know what happened there. He hacked off quite a lot of people in Tynemouth because of his shipping. He was very much an advocate for free trade. And they thought, actually, that's not what we're after. But the Sunderland group were very amenable to free trade and also the repeal of the navigation laws. And he sat us up for election against George Hudson, which you'll obviously know, a Tory, the railway king. He, by this time, had gone into disfavour. and Lindsay won that. This is just an example of what it was like in those days, 1854, just before Lindsay came up, in shipbuilding, which you probably know more than I do about that. But to give you an idea, Lindsay, during the course of his life, had about 40 ships. And you can see the ones marked in yellow that were either built or bought in Sunderland. So he obviously came here a lot to get hold of those ships. And these, again, are ocean-going ships. They're not small ships, they're not coasters, they are ocean-going ships.
Subscribe to our channel and we'll let you know when there's a new video to watch. The subscribe button is below the video next to the like, share and comment icons. To watch another video, just click on one of the pictures above the arrows now.